Happy Friday, everybody. This is July 6th, 2023, and this is Fantasy Baseball on Deck. I'm going to talk about multiple things. There's lots going on in the fantasy baseball world. I'm going to try to focus on what I feel like is most meaningful as always. So, number one, there are key injury pickups. So, both players coming back into the picture who are available, who I think are extra valuable, and there's also players coming back into the picture that are most likely not available to you or like free agents, but understand how they're going to affect players that you might have and the corresponding things, drops, ads, and whatever. So I'll go through that. Number two, I want to talk about roster manipulation tactics, and one that I'm currently using in one of my leagues that it looks a little wonky, but maximizes the quality of my roster given the situation at hand. So that's number two. And then number three, I want to talk about how I decide once I figure out a player or identify a player that I'd like to add to my roster. I need to basically explain who I go or how I go about cutting one of my current players that I think highly of to replace. So a lot of times these websites, these YouTube channels will throw a lot of words at you in regards of, that says something like add this player now, they're going to do X, Y, and Z, but they never really tell you how to differentiate between what is available in the player that they're talking about and what you have now on your roster. So you can, again, set yourself up for success. So without further ado, the Reds are on a 5-game. They're going for their 5th win in a row, and they are 9 games above 500. And I'm pretty pumped up about that, but I'm going to share my screen because that's on task and on topic. So what I want to start with actually is talking about where I stand in my own leagues, knowing that I give you guys a lot of advice, but I want you to know that I'm actually practicing what I preach. So going to go over kind of like how things are going for me and sort of why things have been a little unlucky, but I'm still dominating the categories that mean the most, or the most meaningful in regards to scoring as many points as possible. So in this league, specifically, I want to first talk about bonus points. So it's hard for you to look at this league and understand whether I did a good or not good job or not, without knowing what the scoring structure is. So before you go to any, sign up for any fantasy baseball league, you want to make sure that you know what the scoring breakdown is. And this scoring breakdown is kind of bizarre, as I've talked about before. This league specifically is like everything is like standard scoring times 2 or times 2.5. So you can obviously see that the bonuses are the way that things are scored are runs 2 points, singles 2.5, all the way up to home runs that are 10.5 points. That's a big difference. And then runs batted in, RBIs, are 2 points. And then this is what I really want to hone in on is stolen bases are actually worth the same amount as a run scored and an RBI put together. So if a batter gets on, hits a single, or walks, gets on base, and it causes an RBI to come in, so that's 2 points for them, not including their hit value. And then they end up getting knocked around to score. That's 4 points compared to my players. I have a lot of steal happy, very fast people on my roster. Compared to my player, if I get someone on first or second base, I have such a fast roster that if I steal one base individually with understanding the rule changes were going to be so significant this year, that it's worth the same as if I knocked someone in and came around to score. So from a batting perspective, bonuses, I understand that home runs are a big, huge bonus. Per home run is 14.5 points. But again, if I can get myself onto base and steal the base, I'm already at 6.5 with a whole lot less effort. So that's kind of how I built my roster from a batting perspective, and knowing that everyone in this roster and everyone in this league went super power heavy. I was putting myself in a position to steal a lot of bases and then incur those bonus runs because I was individually putting myself into a position to score. And then pitching, as mentioned kind of before, per out is 2 points. If you get a strikeout, it's a 3-point bonus from my memory. Oh, strikeouts are, strikeouts, 3-point bonus. So if you were to strike out a batter, it is 5 points to you for the put out and the +3 bonus strikeout. So knowing that this roster is going to be constructed with a very speedy team that I'm gonna hope for those runs, kind of in cure, getting guys that are at the top of the lineup, getting on base without people in front of them, taking bases and earning those bonus points, and then also making sure that I'm getting pitchers that are going deep into games, that are striking people out at a higher clip than innings pitched. So without further ado, going back to the standings, better explaining kind of why the standings are the way that they are, and that it was purposeful. Going to my points for, I am third in points for. The first place person in points for has the entire Braves and Rangers essentially line up top to bottom offensively, and that's why they're succeeding so well. And then the player right above me has Shohei Ohtani and Ronald Acuna Jr. on the same roster. So, and Luis Robert from the Chicago White Sox. So 3 of the most productive players in baseball on the same roster, and that he's pretty much being carried by that. But what did I do during the draft? I knew that home runs were a big bonus, but like the big home run guys were going super duper early. Super valuable people were just kind of kept falling to me in certain places. And then also knowing that like pitching was going to be a big bonus, making sure that I was getting the pitchers that I wanted. I know that the individual stats that I'm looking for, total bases, stolen bases, and home runs, we want guys that are averaging as close to a double per total base per hit as we can. And if they are, say, like a Trey Turner, traditionally before this year, he's had a little bit of down year. He's only like a 1.45 total bases per hit, but because he steals so many bases and because he is so fast, he is in the 97th percentile in sprint speed. He's just naturally going to score that many more runs and earn those bonus points for us. So it's kind of like a trade-off. If you're not a super power hitter, but you're on base all the time, sheer volume, that counts too. And the perfect example even for this is Freddie Freeman with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Doesn't steal a ton of bases, even though he was double digits last year again. Just a guy who's always on base, death by a million paper cuts, getting solid contact, average 300, only 20 or so, between 20 and 30 home runs, but will finish in that first base category in first place just about every year because he is a cut above. So again, what did I do? This is kind of the bizarre part. So I knew that I wasn't going to be a big home run guy. I didn't expect myself to be in the bottom quartile or the bottom third, but that is the case. So that is what it is. Have a team that's super fast again. So going back to and then like adding into the RBIs, knowing that I'm like third last in RBIs, that's fine. That makes sense too, because again, my stolen bases, I am well ahead of my peers in that category because that was important to me. Knowing that, again, one stolen base is worth the effort of knocking someone in, which we can't control, and then getting knocked into home plate, which is another thing we can't control. But if we get ourselves on base and, again, steal ourselves into scoring position, we'll have more of an opportunity to score a lot of runs, right? Well, that's kind of where it gets bizarre, is I am first place by a mile in stolen bases, putting myself individually ahead of people left, right, and center to be brought in. I'm unlucky in the way of like over and over again, my players just aren't getting home for those bonus points. So I think that everything's going to eventually equal out. I don't think I'm not going to be that super home run guy. But I'm able to score all of those, again, those run bonus points. That's this category I expected to be leading in, at very least top 3, given how many stolen bases I've taken compared to everybody else in this league. And for example, so I've taken 62 more stolen bases than this El Paso Doggos team. But if in runs particularly, looking at their roster, 425 compared to my 390, and they have 35 more runs scored with 62 less stolen bases taken. So like that math just doesn't make sense aggregating that together throughout the rest of the season, things are going to start to work its way back to the medium law of averages. I'd like to think that by the end of the year, because I'm so far behind right now, by the end of the year, my runs scored category has to eventually make its way back up towards the middle. And my fast people are on bad teams, being, Bobby Witt Jr. and Esteury Ruiz, are getting on base a lot and just kind of getting stranded. So just a glance at the team, just to add that value. My big stolen base guys obviously are Dalton Varsho at the catcher position, Bobby Witt Jr., Esteury Ruiz, and even Jazz Chisholm Jr. when he's able to play. And then I didn't even go over the innings pitched. I'm ahead by a mile. That's really how I'm succeeding in this league. And then strikeouts, I'm ahead by a mile. If we're able to pitch further into innings and we're able to keep more and more batters off the base paths, meaning less runs and hits and runs incurred against us, we are more likely to incur wins as well. And I'm leading in that category. So my pitching is not necessarily carrying this roster, but just by luck, that's kind of the case, at least in this one league. So I'm going to go back to, league number 2 and make this really, really quick. Things that we want to focus on: total bases and stolen bases. Again, total bases, I am 3rd overall after today. I will be in 2nd. Stolen bases, I am number 2. If we combine those individual categories, those individual stats, I am by far and away the number 1 best hitting team in the league. Again, combining those two things. If you are getting guys that are super efficient with total bases, getting players that are very independent, always looking to drive the ball to every end of the field with power, I am most definitely always going to lead the league in strikeouts. Every year I lead the league in strikeouts. I don't care, because the difference is, as I'm just making that much more quality per at bat, whereas the guys that are just constantly making contact, not striking out, are just dunking singles and not earning those RBIs, are putting themselves into a position to score those bonus runs, because they're very rarely getting extra base hits. So just to say it, I did it. 4th place in runs, expected to be up there. I feel like I should be even further up that direction, given that I've scored 50, almost 80 more runs than this number 2 team, or 80 more stolen bases than this number 2 team, but they've scored, 25 more runs than I have. So this is kind of the wonky stat. And then RBIs, I'm number 2. So going over to innings pitched again, I'm ahead by a mile. It's really important to me. And then strikeouts ahead by a mile. And again, if we're going deep into games and keeping people off base. So what else are we leading in? And that's also wins. And then saves, I am pretty middle of the road in both leagues, which I forgot to show over this direction. And holds were important in this league. So a combination of holds and saves, I'm doing pretty well in comparing myself to my peers. So going to the first set of players. What is the big update with Mike Trout? So Mike Trout goes to the IL with a broken hamate bone. That sucks. If you're an Angels fan out there, I feel for you, because man, does your roster, does your team historically just have the worst luck with injuries and different things? But what that means with Mike Trout now going to the IL, along with Anthony Rendon, BrandonDrury, Gio Urshela, and Nito, the shortstop prospect that just recently came up. All these guys are on the IL. So guys that are, Urshela is not necessarily an everyday player, but is generally fitting in somewhere in the roster to help out, at least in the infield, and then being a utility guy. And Nito being the everyday shortstop, at least brought up to be that before he got hurt. This means that what has happened, they've had to hire in mercenaries to come in just to take reps at the defensive position. So Mike Moustakas was brought in after he was DFA'd from the Colorado Rockies. Escobar just got traded from either the Diamondbacks or not the Diamondbacks, or the Mets to come over. I think from the Mets, traded over from the Mets to take reps at the for the Angels, just because, again, everyone's hurt. This also means that the backup kind of utility guys that can take outfield reps, being David Fletcher and Rengifo, are, the guys that can take infield and outfield reps are now going to be forced to take more and more infield reps, because those middle infield spots specifically are really hurting. And then even the corner infield spots are hurting. They're even bringing Hunter Renfroe up from right field to take first base reps. So what does this mean? It means that they have a vast shortage of outfielders, because all the utility guys that could give their outfielders breaks are hurt. And with, Mike Trout being the everyday center fielder going on the IL, this opens up a huge opportunity for one Mickey Moniak. And Mickey Moniak is really, really significant. So what I didn't know about Mickey Moniak, and I've talked about him earlier in the season, I didn't understand that in 2016 out of high school that he was the number 1 pick overall. So first pick overall taken by the Philadelphia Phillies as an 18-year-old kid out of the draft. And knowing what he was traded for. So he's currently 25 years old. Minor league's been weird. Hasn't really been able to figure it out, but he was traded for Noah Syndergaard as the Phillies were trying to stack up pitchers to go to the playoffs and make their run. So Mickey Moniak, 2016 as an 18-year-old kid, now he's 25 years old, number 1 pick overall in that entire draft, traded for Noah Syndergaard. So knowing that the Phillies were kind of like in a situation where they were just looking to add arms before they go to the playoffs, and then also knowing that they also traded away Logan O'Hoppe to the Angels as well for Brandon Marsh in return. Logan O'Hoppe being a very high prospect, but nowhere to go. So the Phillies traditionally will give up really, really solid value as long as they're getting back major league talent that are ready to go right now to help them get to the playoffs. They're a big market, very city of brotherly love, city of brotherly torment. If you guys aren't succeeding, we're going to let you know about it, being the fans. So Mickey Moniak being the number 1 pick overall, 25 years old, traded for Noah Syndergaard. His stats so far this season, and really zooming in on him here, he is averaging 2.14 total bases per hit. So he's averaging over a double per hit that he is incurring. He is in the 87th percentile in sprint speed. And why I bring that up is not necessarily for the fact or this the threat of stolen bases, but because of that depleted outfield, he's the only one fast enough truly to play that center field in that way, in a way that's solid. So he was drafted out of high school with plus defense capabilities, with defensive grades. StatCast doesn't have enough data points to actually have his outs above replacement scores in yet, but knowing that he is fast enough to be in the 87th percentile, and then on top of that, that he is a player that was drafted number 1 overall, assuming that all 5 tools were going to eventually come into sorts. He was most likely compared to a Christian Yelich of sorts. So knowing that they had a ton of investment in this player out of high school, and now he's starting to really put it together. He's batting .297 on the season, and he traditionally wasn't going up against. He's a left-handed batter. He wasn't going up against left-handed pitchers much so far this year. And the only not the scarcity, not to be scared, but every time that he plays against a right-handed pitcher, it's against a right-handed pitcher, and he's leading off for the Angels. The only thing that to be, not worried about, but to keep in mind is that they brought up as well Joe Adell, who has a 99th percentile exit velocity. So big, strong guy, but he strikes out a lot. His average is super low. So every time that he comes up, he gets knocked back down. So today, him being a right-handed hitter, hitting against a right-handed pitcher who has traditionally struggled against, he was automatically slotted in at the 4 spot. And seeing what they have available to them, Anthony Rendon not on roster right now. Shohei Ohtani is batting. Taylor Ward's having a down year, but batting the 2 or the 6 spot, really between. Hunter Renfroe has been really solid, but for whatever reasons not getting priority over even Joe Adell. But Joe Adell got put in the 4 spot, and played left field in his first start today against another right-handed pitcher. So overall, long story short, I think Mickey Moniak has a ton of potential, and this is a player I'm absolutely going to add to my rosters if available and when available. And this is the player that I'm going to use as my example at the end of the video to sort of like show you how I go about deciding who I'm going to drop for Mickey Moniak. So as you guys know, Taylor Ward has been my guy since, he was like one of my golden boys that I was super excited about last season before he ended up being the number one outfielder in all of Major League Baseball before he got hurt, concussion, shoulder issues, whatever. The thing that I fear about Taylor Ward is that even with the depleted outfield, he's still not getting in to games every single day. He's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games before today's contest, but Adell comes up and immediately takes over left field where he traditionally was playing, even with Mickey Moniak shifting over to center. So I'm a huge Taylor Ward guy. I think that they should keep him in the lineup every day, especially given this situation. Even before, I think that they should have kept him in the lineup as much as possible. But, lots of outfielders, quality outfielders on this roster. Shohei Ohtani's the DH spot every time. I can see why he's been, missing time. But also a first-round pick and has shown what he can do when he's hot. When he is hot, there is just about nobody better than Taylor Ward, but he's just not rosterable right now because he's not getting enough at bats. And again, Joe Adell, not super interested in Joe Adell only because his batting average through his history has always been so bad. But overall, Mickey Moniak, who I'm most excited about, and hitting 300 power speed combo, averaging 2 point, again, more than a double per hit. So moving on to Brandon Lowe. So Brandon Lowe comes back to the Tampa Bay Rays yesterday, and I kind of missed this, but here we are talking about it, and we'll make up for it. So Brandon Lowe, really consistent player for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's lost his outfield eligibility. He's not going to play outfield anymore. He's going to be pretty much sandwiched at second base, but knowing that Brandon Lowe is one of those super high ceiling guys that we've seen a lot of production out of before. In 2019, he was on a 30. So he had 17 home runs across 296 at bats, 31 home run pace. 2020, 14 home runs across 193 at bats. That's a 40 home run pace. And then 2021, having a full season to put it together, 39 home runs, 2.2 total bases per hit. Absolutely killing it, even at like a 245, 240 average. I have always wanted players that are 250 average above, or else I don't want them until the rule of Brandon Lowe, because he is able to hit so many home runs and make so much quality per hit. So 2022 and 2023 so far, he's just been kind of injured. He's available in let's say 48% of leagues, and if he is available, I think it's just a pretty given how weak second bases, I just kind of feel like it's a no-doubter to add to your roster given the ceiling potential. And what this means to the people who have the Josh Lowes of the world, the Isaac Paredes, Taylor Walls, Luke Raley, Jose Siri, Betancourt, these players that are kind of filling the infield and the outfield every day. I said before that Brandon Lowe isn't going to be taking outfield reps, but him taking back over that second base and even getting some first base reps every single day. He's one of the only players on the Rays that will play every day, and that's Franco, Brandon Lowe, and the third baseman that's murdering balls. So anywho, third base, shortstop, second base is pretty much locked up, which means that the rest of those players I just mentioned are going to have a lot harder time making their way onto the field and continue to lose playing time, whereas they were already platoon guys before. So it's his second night back. He played tonight. He was 2 for 2 with a walk. Last time I saw him, he was batting the 5-hole of one of the best offenses in baseball. So even this season, he's been down. He's only hitting 200. Obviously, we don't like to see that. His average is going to raise up even after today. But if we can get back that 240 number, he's currently on pace to hit 27 home runs for the rest of the season if he was not to have been hurt. So still a 27 home run guy. And just given that he's missed a ton of at-bats, he's missed let's say 150 at bats, and he's still ranked in the top 20 at his positions. Second base super duper weak. If you have this player, hold on to him. I think he's just going to improve in trade value and obviously production. And then if you don't have this player, if he's available in free agency, I'd try to make room for him, honestly, because, again, we know the ceiling potential, and that's not really available in all of leagues. TJ Friedl onto the Cincinnati Reds leadoff man. The only knock on TJ Friedl for the longest time is that he is a left-handed hitter and would mostly face off against right-handed pitchers, but the second that a left-handed pitcher would come up, he would shift back into the lineup to like the 6 or 7 spot and back and forth that way. But now that he's hitting 307, he is actually crushing left-handed hitting. I think he has a better average against left-handed hitters than he has right-handed hitters. They've really I've got lots of burps today, but they really believe in this guy. 26 years old. He is the everyday center fielder. He's a plus defensive center fielder for the entire league of Major League Baseball. He's one of the best defensive center fielders every day. Just that alone, knowing that he is scouring the outfield every day and expected to patrol that really important position, he is guaranteed playing time. And then on top of that, just the sheer average. Obviously, doesn't have a ton of power, but you mix the ability to steal bases and just the fact that he's getting on base all of the time. The Reds are on an absolute heater. I think it's a pretty easy guy to add to your roster, and he's only owned in 23% of leagues. So the overall update on TJ Friedl is, yes, he has continued to produce, but he is also being kept at that really valuable leadoff position. Whereas before it was usually Jonathan India. They've moved Jonathan India back into between the 2 and the 3 hole per day. And Friedl, pure effort guy, very, very fast individual, just seems to make plays happen every day. And I have the pleasure to watch him, and I'm proud that he's a Red. So on to the next guy. So Josiah Gray, underlying stats, not as good as so his ERA's dropped a lot compared to years past. He's always a 4 to 5 ERA guy. And then this game specifically, even today that they played against the Reds, he got knocked around. He gave up 3 earned runs only across 5 innings pitched, 8 hits. His whip's not very good. So we look at his season overall, 3.30 ERA, really awesome. Whip, not so great, 1.38. So the underlying stat is he has to strike out batters, which he's done throughout his career at a plus rate until this year. So his ERA has been bad and ballooned in the past, but he's always walked people, but struck out a lot of people. Now he's walking a lot of people still, but he's just not striking out people at this rate. I don't think this 3.3 ERA is going to hold up. But the thing with Josiah Gray, which I think is important, given that he's only 20% owned in these leagues, he's on a 1-year contract with the Washington Nationals. And regardless of what his whip is, his K rate, whatever, he is going to be a valuable commodity if he can stay healthy to another major league roster. He is absolutely going to be traded at the deadline. The same thing as Lane Thomas, same thing as Javier Candelario. These players have never played on like really good teams. They're producing as much as they can on the Washington Nationals. If you need pitching depth, I think this is a pretty easy guy to stash away. If you get huge bonuses for wins, obviously it's not going to be relevant until later this month when the trade deadline hits. But I think that again, Josiah Gray has the opportunity to be traded to a contender and pitch around 200 innings or so, which is something that is valuable in fantasy. Not a player that I specifically want, but if you need a player that you're really hurting with pitching, he's having a pretty good year on paper. Again, I think the underlying stats, he's going to get knocked around a little more like even he did today, but he is going to be on a better roster and maybe even be more enthused about showing up to the ballpark every day, given knowing that you're going to get run support for the first time in your entire life. So he's only played for the Nationals his whole career. Maybe that'll be a little bit of a boost. Maybe even better pitching coach, pitching staff to shepherd him on the way. So on to Tarik Skubal. Tarik Skubal was on his way to having an all-star year last year. So he was kind of mixed in with the Matt Manning and Casey Mize, Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green. The Tigers had 5 players in the top 30, top 100 prospects all at once. Spencer Torkelson and Riley, Casey Mize and Riley Green all being within the top 10 at one point. Tarik Skubal, top 30 prospect in 2021. And he was an all-star, pretty much going to be an all-star last year before he had a season-ending injury. So in 2022, he had 117 innings pitched and 117 strikeouts with a 3.52 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP. That checks every box that we want. But I think that even more importantly, the stat line of his very last game, he went like 3 innings pitched and gave up like 8 earned runs, which ballooned his ERA, his WHIP, and all of his stats to be even like the 3.52 ERA with the 1.16. He was even more dominant with a higher K rate than his last couple of starts after he started to kind of wear down on his arm. I think it's his flexor tendon or his Tommy John, one of the two. But has come back. His very first outing, he was he threw a no-hitter, 4 innings pitched against the Oakland AAAs. 4 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, didn't walk a man, didn't give up a hit. So really, really encouraging given his first day out as a major league player in 2023. So obviously not going to get a lot of run support, but we're always looking for quality over dependent categories. So we don't want our pitchers to have to rely on wins, no matter what the quality of the team is around them. We're looking for just overall quality, awesome, good pitchers. And I think Tarik Skubal has the makeup. And now that he's even ramping up, he's probably still available in your league, 15% only owned. But he is a high strikeout guy. He's been a low ERA, low WHIP guy. He checks every single box. He's most likely available in your league. I've already added him across multiple of my leagues myself. And then I just wanted to give some love to JP France for just half a second. Guy, every time that I get on to watch JP France, they talk about how he's just not super impressive. He just sort of goes out there and he gets the job done, but not somebody you're ever going to super invest into. And do I love the strikeout rate? No. If he has 60 innings pitched, I want 60 strikeouts or more, kind of moving forward. But just the fact that he is just not giving up hardly, he just doesn't get touched a whole lot. So his 3.13 ERA, 1.21 WHIP, so right at that borderline of what we're looking for. He's getting lots of run support, even on the days that he is taking losses, not bad losses. 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 6.2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, just not getting a lot of run support, whatever. I think this is just a player that he's not going to get you 20. He's not going to get you 30 points plus, really ever. But he's just been such a consistent guy in the double digits department. I have him in basically all my leagues. I just expect him to get me between 14 and 18 points just about every time he goes out there. And he's only available, and he is available in around 79% of leagues. So JP France, if you need pitching depth, he's kind of overlooked and underappreciated, but not in my camp. I appreciate you and rate you the way that you should be. Next, I've talked about the trash fire that is the Cardinals. Couldn't be happier about the Cardinals not winning, but I just wish that they were not ruining the development of all their guys as much as they are. But I've had that conversation already before. I'm going to make this more valuable. Every player that you're looking at now in my head is not super rosterable. Regardless of the talent and the ceiling potential, they're all competing for the same spots. So Nolan Gorman is only playing second base or hitting DH. He's only filled in at third base on Nolan Arenado's days off. And even then they're giving Brendan Donovan, even priority sometimes at third base too. So Nolan Gorman is pretty much locked into only second base reps. Brendan Donovan's also taking second base reps. Tommy Edman takes second base reps. They all pretty much cancel each other out, regardless of how quality they've been in the past or how dynamic either of those players are. They're just not getting the overall volume that you need. So Nolan Gorman, have a lot of faith in Nolan Gorman. They left him in versus left-handed pitching, and he went on a crazy cold streak. He had another home run today. He's 23 years old, super power guy. It's just that his average is a little low, but even for 230 at 23 years old, having 16 hits only across only 256 at bats, I just can't believe that they're not leaving him in every single day. But they're kind of in panic mode because they were supposed to run away with the NL Central, and they are not going to even be sniffing the playoffs, mostly because of their pitching woes. But so, anyways, these infield guys, Tommy Edman, Brandon Donovan, Nolan Gorman, in my head, not rosterable. Tommy Edman owned in 84% of leagues. If you're a Tommy Edman owner, he's got those flexibility stats, being second base, shortstop, and outfield. This would be an opportunity for me to look at a roster who doesn't have a second baseman that's worth a crap, or has maybe just recently lost an outfielder. Like, Mike Trout's not replaceable, but you can find a roster somewhere with a batting lineup that's not super flexible, and Tommy Edman's more valuable than his actual production just because of his flexibility. He does play every day. He's just not playing at the leadoff spot like we've gotten to know him as in the past. And then Jordan Walker, have all the faith in Jordan Walker. He would have never been able to beat Corbin Carroll's MVP candidate rookie season so far this year, but he was my pick to win NL Rookie of the Year, and he would have had every opportunity to compete with Corbin Carroll until he went on his hot streak. Until now, if he was just allowed to play every day. Jordan Walker, with the return of Lars Nootbaar, even Dylan Carlson last week, is already going to begin losing at-bats and not playing as much. And then Tyler O'Neill actually just started a rehab start today as well. So Tyler O'Neill coming back as well as a first-round pick that they have a lot of faith in. He's hit 34 home runs even just, I think, this last year. So Tyler O'Neill, struggling guy. Dylan Carlson, who was a first-round pick as well. Lars Nootbaar, they can't seem to not move him out of either the first or second spot given his on-base percentage. It's just Jordan Walker's running out of places to be, and I love him, but at 39%, and I think it's pretty safe to try to ship him off. He's still on my other roster, but that's the end of this segment. St. Louis Cardinals, sad. They're just all competing for the same spots, and again, like, this is loading. But even when Jordan Walker is in the lineup, he at one point get out of here, ad. Jeez, stop. Okay. Even Jordan Walker is in the lineup. He's shifted back to the 7 spot. Even like just recently, as of today, in between the 5 and the 6. 5 was good, but Jordan Walker again should be in the lineup every day. I'll move on to the next topic. The next topic is roster manipulation. So there is no second baseman on my roster, with the combination of Jazz Chisholm and BrandonDrury Jr. Jazz Chisholm Jr. and BrandonDrury getting hurt just like within a week of each other, essentially. I got to the point where I don't have any eligible second baseman to put in this slot. So what are my thoughts? I am looking at my roster and I think to myself, like, it looks pretty goofy, but at the same time, I think to myself, like, if I was going to get rid of a pitcher, which Tarik Skubal is that extra pitcher that I added instead, who would I get rid of for what's available just to fill into a batting slot? So if I look at the best second baseman basically available, I'm looking at Nolan Gorman, who I just talked about, who's struggling to just get on the field every day, and he's not being played against left-handed pitching anymore at the bottom of the lineup. So even though I love Nolan Gorman, he's just not playing enough to be rosterable. Tony Kemp, I don't think can hit above 250 to save his life. He's at 193 so far this year, playing on a AAA's roster that's just not producing a ton. He's been really consistent, really productive over just the last week, but he's just not a player that is ownable in fantasy baseball. And even like a Gene Segura, 6%. Like, I'm just looking at the people who are most productive at this position for just right now, and I'm looking to see who is worth adding to essentially drop one of my pitchers who I believe in. So I've already talked about JP France. I think a lot of JP France. Tarik Skubal, high ceiling. Pete Fairbanks, one of the best relief pitchers in all of baseball for the team with the most wins. Bobby Miller has shown a lot of promise, even pitched again tonight. Had 15 points against the Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Pirates, 7 strikeouts over 5.2 innings pitched. So like being a super young guy who's going to stick in that rotation because the Dodgers had all the injuries. And then, even like a George Kirby is a guy that I traded for 92%, owned, like not a guy that I can drop to the free agent Wolves, has had very up and down weeks, but like a 1.04 ERA and 3.2 ER, 1.04 whip, 3.21 ERA, and always goes deep into games. Not a guy I can drop. Nobody on my roster I'd feel comfortable getting rid of. So it's one of those things where I look at this roster again and see that there is an empty second base slot, but even at the same time, I look down again and see that I don't have anyone in my pitching roster that I would comfortably get rid of at this time. I guess it would be Taj Bradley, maybe, but he's only had just like a couple bad days over his really entire awesome, sensational rookie year to start. So he'd get snapped up immediately too. So long story short, it's okay to have a wonky roster as long as you're keeping quality. I always have 3 relief pitchers like on my roster. As long as you have 3 relief pitchers on roster, that means that you're not going to you're not going to like max out your starting limit. And then also, those saves are, good bonus points. It's good to have 3 people going for you each and every night. So between Pete Fairbanks, Estevez, and Duran, 3 is enough. My other league, it's Estevez, Fairbanks, and the new closer for the Cardinals, just because of roster restrictions, whatever. But 3 relief pitchers, really important. None of these pitchers are worth dropping over the available second baseman. So I'm just going to leave it, knowing that there's no penalty for not having a second baseman slot. And whenever Jazz Chisholm Jr. comes back or BrandonDrury comes back, I will happily slide them back in to that position, knowing that they've been really productive. And then ideally find a way to trade one of these pitchers away. Knowing as well, to kind of like a bonus topic, all of these pitchers that I have a lot of faith in. I have Carlos Rodon, who was one of my highest drafted pitchers. I take him 56th overall, so a top 60 player is coming off of my bench. Same concept. I don't have a place to put him right now, given that I think very highly of my pitchers. So I've begun the process of really trying to trade away some pitching value, knowing that Carlos Rodon is just a couple weeks away. He's supposed to return either right before or right after the All-Star break. I think this week he's literally supposed to return. So Friday, July 7th. So today he's literally supposed to return today, and I don't have a place to put him. So that's a project for future Austin. And then next was, so if I was going to add Mickey Moniak to my roster, I would want to go and figure out which outfielder do I want to essentially get rid of. And if I'm looking at my team and I'm between Jarred Kelenic and Esteury Ruiz, they've essentially played the same amount. Esteury Ruiz actually just like went in for x-rays earlier today. He might have just actually effed up his shoulder, and he might be done for the year, which would be a huge hit on my stolen base count, given he has 42 stolen bases so far this year. But Esteury Ruiz, he is my death by volume, gets on base, doesn't get much more than singles, steals his way to second base. Jarred Kelenic, a higher pedigree prospect, but is struggling with 240 average. The way that I've nailed this down is Jarred Kelenic and Ruiz have scored the same amount of points. If we look at like their differential, so 288 at bats compared to 330 at bats at the top of that Athletics lineup. So there are 42 more at bats given to Ruiz, and they've scored the same amount of points. So I'm thinking to myself, I think Jarred Kelenic's a more quality overall player. So we look at the total bases per hit. Jarred Kelenic's hitting really healthy 1.8 total bases per hit, and he's got 139 total bases plus stolen bases. So those individual categories we're looking at being total bases and stolen bases, the only things that they really can control on their own without help. So Jarred Kelenic has 139 of those. Esteury Ruiz is only averaging 1.28 total bases per hit. He has 150 total bases plus stolen bases. So with his whopping 42 stolen bases added to his value, he is essentially outproducing Jarred Kelenic as an individual by 11 total bases and or stolen bases combined, right? So how do we really determine like who I'm going to drop? Really getting down to the basis here is you want to figure out what are your bonuses. So this last tab, I just mentioned these two players that are that have scored the exact same in this other tab. So Esteury Ruiz in this other league where I said stolen bases are a big bonus, 4 points per stolen base. Those 42 stolen bases, essentially equate to 160. So 84, 168 fantasy points worth of points just by himself. So take away all of his just individual batting. Stolen bases alone, he has 168 points attributed to him as an individual, and he stole another base today. So he's at 43 stolen bases. He has 634 points scored on the entire year. Jack Sawinski has 18 home runs, 17 more home runs than Esteury Ruiz, and he has scored 25 points more than Jack Sawinski with 17 more home runs. Jarred Kelenic, who we saw in the other league, who they've scored the exact same amount, he only has 600 points compared to Esteury Ruiz's 634 points. So you want to look for these bonuses, right? Like if you have stats, if you have stat bonuses that give you, again, a lot of bumps for doing particular things, walks or stolen bases, then these are the people that you want to invest in and find early. So looking at even like Juan Soto, like in this league specifically, Juan Soto, a walk is worth, I think, 2.5 points. So a walk is worth more than an RBI and even a run as well. So knowing that like Juan Soto is going to lead the league every year in walks, 78 walks overall, he's always going to attribute to being a top outfielder. And Esteury Ruiz, as I mentioned before, position ranked number 8 for primary left fielders. So if I was going to decide in this league specifically, if Esteury Ruiz and Jarred Kelenic are both healthy, I don't know about Esteury Ruiz. In this league, I would pick Moniak over Kelenic just because of the pure stat bonus that's available for, again, stolen bases. If I was to go to this other league, determining, between the two individuals, Jarred Kelenic and Esteury Ruiz, Jarred Kelenic's on a roster of Seattle, who is currently 50-50, so they've got just as many wins as losses. They're not necessarily going to be buyers or sellers right now at the deadline. We got to really wait this out through the All-Star break to figure out where they're at, how far they're back. But I think they're probably going to need to sell, but they're not getting rid of Kelenic. Kelenic, his head behavioral health wise, I think that Kelenic is a guy that it struggles to say the least. Not the most emotionally stable guy. I think when they're out of the playoffs, he'll be start to decline, but he is he's been more productive than Esteury Ruiz per at bat, per plate appearance, overall for the entire year. Again, that 1.80 total bases per hit. As long as he can get his batting average up from 247, he's naturally going to outproduce Esteury Ruiz in almost every category, even with the stolen bases considered, given that, they're going to be playing just about the same amount. So in my head, I think in this league, given that a stolen base is worth 1 point, a total base is worth 1 point, they're equivalent. I think I would give the edge to Jarred Kelenic, even though Esteury Ruiz is, a very independent player, getting himself in scoring position. So I'll stop rambling. 48 minutes. I'm probably going to speed this up and my Premiere Pro app, but if you guys are still here listening to me, I'll add chapters and hopefully make this a better experience than just 48 minutes of me talking. So anyways, I really appreciate you guys supporting me as always, and have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you soon.